Welcome to the Master Your Breath podcast. My name is Tom Richter, and in today's episode, I sit down with Sebastian Pucelle from with-yinyoga. He and his partner Murielle just taught a whole week intensive at Gaia Yoga School here in Zagreb about traditional Chinese medicine, yin yoga, meridians, and so on. So I took the chance to sit down with him and have a conversation about yin yoga. It is not a lot about the depth of breath, but as you know, I come from Ashtanga yoga. I come from a place of really loving to explore the principles of various traditions and bringing them together in my teaching and in my understanding, in my own path. And so I really enjoyed this conversation. We talk about how to deal with pain, how to surrender to your life's path, to how to use various principles, the yin and the yang principles, the passive and more active principles in life, in practice, to heal injury. And I think the idea that we can use yin yoga, the principles, the qualities of yin yoga, and bring them into our lives, whether that's a breathing practice, a movement practice, training, fitness, but also how we spend our days and how we manage our lives. Oftentimes those qualities of passiveness, of surrendering, of letting go, of staying open are not as much appreciated in today's world as the yang principles of actively doing something, of grinding through it, of actively producing. And so, if nothing else, this talk I think highlights this, that there is those principles of yin yoga, of the practice of yin yoga, that we can bring into anything in our lives that we already have and where we are working on improving something. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Sebastian Pucelle from with-yinyoga. Today I'm sitting with Sebastian Pucelle from with-yinyoga.
Hello.
And we just had a nice week here at Gaia Yoga School with him and his wife Murielle. You were teaching Chinese...
Yes, yin yoga and Chinese medicine, Taoism.
Yes, and I unfortunately couldn't join myself, but I heard very many good things. We can talk about that as well, because you're really nicely mixing the different traditions. But before we start with this, maybe you can introduce yourself shortly, because as far as I understand, your history within the field of yoga has spanned over many years, and coming from a more yang approach, Ashtanga yoga practice, through lots of different kinds of meditations, and now your specialized field of yin yoga.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Tom. So personally, my yoga journey started early 90s. If I can remember, the first class I did was in 94. And before that, I was involved in martial art, Japanese martial art, called Taido. It's kind of a modern martial art based on 5 movements, 5 elements. And I had a car crash accident when I was 19 and broke my spine. I had a fracture on the spine. And so I recovered with a lot of pain, chronic pain, especially in the lower back. And so I had slowly to withdraw from the practice of martial art, and that was the prognostic of the doctors at the time. And so I fall into yoga, came across yoga, and I started to develop more this practice and letting go of my martial art practice. Then I went first through actually Hatha yoga, and it just happened that I've moved to London in 95. I was living just above Ashtanga Shala. It's actually called the Shala, and my first Ashtangi teacher was Jinjili. Is one of the first, I would say, teachers close to Patabi Joyce with all the others, with David Swinsons and all of that. And so I was really in love with the practice, and he helped me to recover, but not completely. I still had chronic pain, in my back here and there. And I was a therapist at the time also, a shiatsu therapist, and trained in St. John's Wood in Chinese medicine for 3 years at the Tibetan house. And so slowly learning more about healing and learning more about method of healing and so on. And it just happened that, as you know, in Ashtanga, once in a blue moon, or I would say when the moon is there, you're not supposed to practice. And for us in the Shala, it was like yin yoga practice, and it was new at the time. And so that was my first experience of yin yoga around 2004, 2005. And I liked it. I thought it was a nice practice to do once in a blue moon, and a good kind of alternative to the Ashtanga practice. And it happened that Sarah Powers came in London in 2006, and I was curious to know more about the practice. She was one of the big names around yin yoga, and so I did her workshops, a series of workshops in London. And I really loved it. It gave me more depth. Even so, at the time, yin yoga was not really well explained. It didn't add the whole curriculum as we know it now. It was just like, yeah, stay in the pose and then breathe. They let you marinating in the pose. But Sarah Powers was very keen into Buddhism and then giving some Dharma teaching around yin yoga, which is always nice to receive. And then with Murielle, my partner, and as we teach together, we created the school with-yinyoga together. We decided to move from London to Indonesia and live on the island of Java. So that was a big stretch, London to the countryside of Java, right in the middle of the rice field. And so this is where we really established more practice and started to teach more yin yoga.
Let me interrupt you there. What made you move from London to Java? Like, was it including a complete, like, quitting your job and leaving everything behind?
No, yes, all of that. And even so, we had great jobs, which we lacked. But London is a big city, a capital of European capital, big and frenetic, frantic, and we had enough of the energy. Whereas we were feeling both together. Even so, we had a very good setup. We loved the apartment where we were living. We had a nice community, good friends, good professions. But we couldn't bear the energy anymore of the big city life. And it just happened that I was self-employed as a therapist, and I was working 8 months, in a block, and taking 3 or 4 months break. Mm-hmm. And every year I was going to Asia, either India, Thailand, and Indonesia, to meet teachers, gurus, and so keeping learning. And it was harder and harder to go back every time. When you stay 3 months in a country or in a different type of environment, which is, I felt, more suitable at the time for me, was harder to go back, and especially, I don't know, it just happened, but I was going back every time during the winter, mm-hmm. And so it was more and more difficult to catch up with the life that I had left in London at the time. And so it just came naturally that let's move, and then we had to let go of everything we had at the time there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I bet it made it easier that you both, as a couple, decided that.
Yes, for sure. It was easier as a couple, and well, it's part of challenges as well. But no regrets so far.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that, because it was the same for me. I was working in Germany back also around 2008-09, and then going to India and coming back and just feeling this complete separation between how it felt there and how the energy and the people and everything, the friendliness, the smiles, and going back to like those gray faces that really don't enjoy life, or seem to really not enjoy life, and just feeling that separation, or that this distinction between the two states and just saying, okay, at a certain point, I don't want this anymore. And Well, but what would you like? Is there any recommendation if somebody feels that? And I guess for most people, this feeling of this doesn't feel well anymore is not so clear because they don't have this clear-cut difference to, okay, now I'm 3 months in a beautiful tropical place, or around spiritual people, or learning and doing something for self-development, going back into a city where there's a lot more business and driving to make money, and like, not that this is a bad thing, but the energy is just completely different. And so you really feel this feels so different, and therefore I really have this sensation I need to go somewhere else. Versus for most people, I think it's more, this doesn't feel right anymore, but I don't really know what else. And what could we do? Do you have some like magic pill, some idea what you could ask yourself, or what you could do to, in that situation where you feel something is off but cannot really make it clear?
Make the decision, yes. I can just share maybe the way that we did it and how it was for us, but I don't think there is one recipe. But for us, it was to become closer to Dharma and the teaching of Dharma that we found in Asia. Murielle and I were versed in Dharma already for a long time through Buddhism, and it's always been part of our life, Dharma teaching and learning.
Can you shortly explain for everybody what Dharma is, so we all know?
Yes. So Dharma for us is a set of understanding our life is about and what is about, and the relation we can have with that. So we can look at Dharma as universal law in a way, but also the way that you can conduct yourself and to align yourself to those laws. And so in Dharma you find, of course, many Hinduism tradition and Buddhism, Jainism, but also Taoism. So it's something that you find in Asia, but I will say it's something which is universal. Such the law of impermanence, for instance. Everything is constantly changing and transiting. That's part of Dharma. Often including also a notion of karma and transmigration or reincarnation. And so we were always pulled towards that, more understanding of that. And I think that was really the thing which make it clear for us. And so Murielle and I were very much so interested and versed into Dharma already before we met, and when we met we had this in common, and that was the pull for us. And so we try to follow the sign, and things become clearer and clearer. I think once you set your intention to something which is really dear to you, and just have to let time create the path for you. And things were actually pretty easy in a way, because I was ready to go and Murielle was not ready at the time. And so I had to wait a year and a half, almost 2 years, for Murielle to be ready. But I knew that she will at some point be ready. She wasn't ready because she had to deal with family problem, and then she wasn't ready to go until those problems settled by itself, or through time usually it does. And then once this has settled, then everything unfolds naturally for us. And so if I can give an advice, is have a clear intention of what you really want. It doesn't have to be the environment, it doesn't have to be what is material or around us, but it has to be from something inside. And if you have that, then let that be the guide, really, and things naturally unfold.
Yeah. I think that's where also lots of times it's like, again, there's like these two extremes, like, oh, I will just let go and let's see what happens, which is not what you're saying. You're saying you want to have a clear intention, but then surrender to how it unfolds and trust that it will unfold.
Exactly.
sticking to that intention in a
Yes.
way.
But being able to adapt,
Yeah.
because mind and phenomena and physicality, and I mean, mind can go very fast. Oh, I want to be there, and I set myself there, and I give myself 6 months to move there, and then but life might not be ready to do, so at the time. So you have to take those two parameters and try to find a common ground where they can meet. Yes.
Yeah. Nice. And one more question that I didn't want to interrupt you at the beginning, but you said that you injured your spine in the car accident and then you started your Ashtanga journey, and it helped you a lot to recover to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Because I love Ashtanga, and because I love teaching it, and I love the flexibility it has, even though it's oftentimes considered as such a dogmatic thing, and there's only one way to do certain things, the sequence, etc. But because you were injured, I assume to recover through the Ashtanga practice, you did need some modification and all of that. How was the approach of your Ashtanga teacher at that moment? Was he very considerate, and like, how did he approach that?
Yes, I'm not sure if I shared with him that I had a car crash accident and a spine injury. Yes, at the time, I'm not sure. I can't remember actually, but yeah, he was not pushing too much. He was respecting the limit, gingerly. It's pretty well versed into Ashtanga since a very long time, and his father is a martial art master. Also, he's half American and half Chinese, living in London. And so he had a very well-established body relation and sensitive to body relation. And so he knew how to listen to the body and how to transmit that. But me personally, I had that also because I started martial art when I was 8 years old. And so in comfort, moving to pain for me was not something that was completely alien. I had injury before that, in my youth, and I broke, a few bones here and there before breaking the spine, which is the major, maybe fracture in my body. And so I was listening. And he was not like adamant into that. You cannot do this pose today, then okay, skip it and then move to the next one and see what's taking place tomorrow. It was more in this approach, which I liked at the time. And so, yeah, I kept practicing, I think, around 7 years. And then I was in love with the first series. Even so, I started to do the second series. I was always coming back to the first series for some reason.
What did it give you? What do you think?
So my routine was 6:30 Mysore practice. And so I was doing my practice for an hour and a half. And then I love how to wake up into the Mysore practice and the sweat. I felt like it was going into the washing machine, and I get cleaner out of it. And I felt much more, pure and clean within. I took my bike and I was cycling from Battersea Park to Covent Garden, which is quite a stretch, every day, and then giving shiatsu therapy all day. So it's very physical way of life for a few years in a row. And I think Ashtanga helped me to keep everything together. I felt that it was a part of, a component of my life in general, which was central to keep everything together. Because when you give also shiatsu therapy, massage, hands-on on people, it's also physical. And so I needed to, first things in the morning, to have this clear connection with my body, with my breath, with my energy, and feel that my body is actually freely moving, the energy is freely flowing, the best it can, of course, because as we know, there is always fluctuation, but there was a form of hygiene, really, for me at the time, helping me also to deal with the pain of my lower back. And when I skipped the practice, then I felt like the tension was creeping in again, and my thoracolumbar fascia, specifically erector spinae muscle from the lumbar segment, was tensing and contracting, which pained me on one side. And so I had to stretch every day to be able to bring back my body to a standing kind of normal position.
Yeah. Well, I also have this feeling that, I don't know if you have that same experience, but when I teach a lot and when I also do treatments and these kind of things, it's a kind of increases the vata. Like you get all the energies, and it's like very airy, like the element of air, more fluctuating. Versus when I do the primary series, especially, it's very grounding. So it's nicely combining those two things. To get back to yourself, or to start the day grounded, so that then you can give.
Exactly, and then not you mentioning it. Yes, I think this is what it was, grounding myself for the day to come, and then going back to this feeling of being grounded and connected to the body. And moving from there through the day.
Nice. And then you said that you added those yin practices in, and I also do that very, like, this is how I experience yin for myself. Like once a week, a nice yin practice to finish off my Ashtanga week. I did that for many years, and it was really nicely balancing. And then over the years, because my breathing practice, my pranayama practice was such an important part of my life, or my spiritual practices, the physical practice also became softer through the breath. And I think anyway, this is a good intention to have if you have a long time Ashtanga practice, because a lot of people come to the Ashtanga practice because it's grounding, but it connects you to the breath. It connects you to a somewhat meditative state through movement. And most people are not ready to just sit and do nothing. Sit and just meditate. So the Ashtanga practice picks us Western people, that are very gung-ho and A-type personalities up where we are, and brings us to the softer practices. And then the breathing brought me there as well. And so the idea was, where can I find more yin in my yang practice? To balance it more, to get less injured, to feel calm afterwards. And that once a week yin practice, of course, helps with that too. What was your... Well, I mean, I guess you went from there anyway to more yin. So maybe you can comment on that.
It was the sub-teacher, which was covering Jinji at the Shala, which introduced yin, actually, and once a week. And then so I came across the practice, and I liked it. And then I had more exposure to the practice through Sarah Powers, and again reinforcing my interest into the practice. But really, what triggered me to naturally shift from Ashtanga to Yin was the interest that we had in meditation, Murielle and I. We already had kind of established practice in Buddhism practice, meditation practice. Personally, in Theravada tradition, and Murielle was involved in Vajrayana, Tibetan approach of meditation, Buddhism. And we were looking for a practice which will support a physical practice, postural practice, which will support our meditative endeavors. And Yin felt right at the time, and still feel right for that. We feel like the Yin practice bear all the meditative quality from within, but using the body. And then when you move to a more static and still seated practice of meditation, the body is not only ready, the body, I would say, is mature and not just the body, also the attitude and the mind is ready for deeper diving into stillness, but this time psychological, mental stillness, energetical stillness that are often required for deeper seated meditative practice. So that was really for us what Yin gave us from the beginning. But I can add, and not the least. It is yin which cure me from my backache. Not hatha yoga, not Ashtanga yoga. I was a therapist, and I was practicing in Covent Garden and different places in London. And Covent Garden is a little hub of healers and therapists. There is an acupuncturist, there is a rolfer, there is physiotherapists of all sorts, there is a herbalist, and so on. So I had a lot of connection with healers and therapists from many different backgrounds, and I tried everything, to cure me from or heal me from this back pain, which was redundant and recurrent. And yeah, some of the therapy alleviate some of the pain, but it's not until I started to practice yin regularly, and which is like every day, maybe one day off, that I started to get rid of the tension, running through the fascia, because as you know, yin is targeting the fascia, and I got rid of it. I had this back pain from the age of 19 to the age of 35, and until I started to establish, it took me 1.5 to 2 years of regular yin practice. I got rid of back pain forever. It never came back. Maybe once in a blue moon when I'm very tired or stressed, then I feel a hint at the exact same place, but otherwise I'm free of suffering, free of not suffering, still suffering from different reasons, but free of this specific back pain, actually, yes.
And so you think that's mainly because the fascia was holding a certain tension pattern?
Yeah, it's actually the water in the fascia which is absorbing the trauma, any form of trauma. Could be physical trauma, psychological trauma, moral and emotional, whatever happening in your life has an impact on the body. And then so if it's a little problem, little trauma, is no big deal, and you can evacuate it. But when it's big trauma, like a car crash accident, then you will have sequel of that. You will have remaining of that memory ingrained, imprinted into. People will say muscle. It's not the muscle. It's not neither the tissue. It's the water running through the tissue which is holding the memory. And so, what does the body? It does everything it can to dissipate the trauma. So let's say you have a physical trauma. You go into the apple tree, you want to pluck out some apple, you fall from the tree, boom, you fall onto your rib cage. So you're bruised, nothing's broken, but it's pretty painful. The shock happening on the rib cage, the body will absorb it. And it do everything it can to dissipate the shock in all directions through the fascia network. Of course, you still bruise because the shock is strong, and so you have to heal from that. And according to the severity of the shock, then it will take you a week, 2 weeks, I don't know, a month, and so off you go. But what happened with the trauma that has been actually dissipated into every nook and cranny, into every corner of the body? It remains there. And there is different phase change of the water in the body. We know the water under liquid or lymph. We know the water under vapor or gas, and we know the phase change of water under solid, which is in the body crystal. We have tiny crystal, everywhere in the body. There is the fourth phase of water, which is gel. And so the theory behind is like when you go further than your normal range of movement, you're creating tension and compression into your joint, into the fascia, and there is influx of electricity called piezoelectricity, which is going into wherever you stretch. When you're going further than your normal range of movement, then this piezoelectricity will melt the tiny crystal which was there and dormant for ages. And this is how it can release trauma back to the surface of the network of the matrix and then evacuate it through his different means. And that's what Yin Yoga did for me. I experienced personally a recovery over a year and a half, 2 years, of this trauma that I had when I had this car crash and I was 19 years old. The prognostic and diagnostic of the doctors at the time, neurologists, said, first, you should stop martial art. Forget about your professional career in sport, in martial art. Stop. You won't be able to do it as you used to, which was not true completely anyway. And he said, and you'll be in pain, chronic pain, for the rest of your life. Thank you. Off you go. And so, I was already grateful to be alive, because fracture of the spine, then if it touched the spinal cord, then, then you can lose the either the use of your lower limbs or the whole body.
Yeah.
And so this pain was there. It was true, like from the age of 16 years of chronic pain. And I know that it is the regular practice, what we call the passive traction on the body, passive traction, applying passive traction to the connective tissue, which allow me to dig the trauma, which was deep down into the layers of my fascia, of my body, coming back to the surface and let it naturally leave me. And it took me more or less a year and a half to 2 years to do that.
Was there a specific protocol that you applied, like a specific set of postures, or was it just in general moving around that body part through the yin poses, through the yin approach?
Yes, for me at the beginning it was very local, and it was in between, it was all my lumbar segment basically, and including some of the sacrum. So one of the poses that I did on a regular basis was caterpillar, which is like a Paschimottanasana in yoga, but the yin way, so in a relaxed way, and staying longer in a pose up to 8 to 10 minutes. Yes, and a long rebound after, and that's the key element.
Okay.
The key element is to stimulate the body, stimulate the tissue. And then we actually creating tension and compression. We're also creating a disruption of flow of fluids, blood, lymph, and prana. And then when we release, the body is reorganizing itself, reharmonizing itself. And then this is the key element. This is where the magic happens. And so rebound are part of the practice, at least in yin yoga, but I guess in all form of yoga, because shavasana is a rebound. So targeting in forward bend, especially the lower back and the sacrum, and also working back extension through the saddle. I needed to have this forward bend and back extension, forward bend and back extension, which is pretty basic. And I was searching, for many years, with different means of healing and therapy. I could heal my lower back, and forward bend, back bend. That's it.
Simple as that.
Simple, yeah.
Okay.
But in a very specific way, where you stay longer, and then you stay with the sensation. It wasn't easy, because if your back hurt and then you do a pose, it will hurt a little bit more, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so through the use of props and support, then you find the threshold, what you can support today. Today, and that's it for today. Yeah. And then you have to be patient. It's a work of patience. It's a work of humility. And it's a work of attention and connection, listening. But really, everything is there if we just give the time to it.
Yeah. It's I'm curious, because in my Ashtanga teaching, I always tell people there's various ways of pain, or various kinds of pain. Right? Like there's compressive pain that feels different, and stretchy pain. There's just this slight feeling of discomfort, which some people will say, oh, it's nothing. Other people will say, oh, this hurts like crazy. So there's a very big range also in terms of interpretation of what is.
Definitely.
And then there's a feeling of, okay, there's a little stretch, and then this is a stretch of I'm little more and I'm tearing. Right? So what is a healthy amount of stretch and what is too much? Also that is something of a range, and based on the personality of the person is something to even develop. Because some people, for them it's just there's pain or there's no pain. And then once you explore a little, it becomes this range of possible different things that you can state. And in Ashtanga practice, or in any practice, I guess, but in Ashtanga practice, when I teach it, it's very important for someone to know this is a pain that is okay to endure. It's important to grow, to become better, to release something. And then there's pain which is to be avoided because this will lead to injury. And from my experience in Yin, it's also very much about that, I guess, because you stay so long in the pose and there will be discomfort, but what is the discomfort where you surrender and create humility around it, and what is the pain that is not to be put on you?
Yeah, this is a very important question, I think, for all people working with the body, and not just yoga, could be dance, martial art, you name it. Because discomfort and pain are bound to come. Either we want it or not. And if it doesn't come, then just wait as you're getting older. It will come. But, and it's true, really, the person who opened my eyes is our teachers, to Murielle and I, Paul and Susie Greeley. Paul said it this way. He said, this is the most difficult question to answer for a yoga practitioner and yoga teacher. The most difficult. Because pain is subjective, as you mentioned it. Pain is actually is a sensation, physical sensation, but ultimately it's an emotion. And pain comes from the astral plane, not the physical plane. There is this theory of the Sharira in yoga, which is the three bodies, the physical, astral, and causal body. And so the astral body is the body of emotion. And pain is part of the astral plane, meaning it's an emotion, meaning it's completely subjective from one person to the other. And we all have a different relation to what is discomfort and what is pain. And so now we're stepping out of physicality and mechanics, and we're stepping into psychology. And everyone will be different in regards to, this is not comfortable to me, and someone's, you sure? Because I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think everyone will have to find for them the threshold of that. But one thing that I can say is movement is life. And so without movement, you cannot heal. So the question is not like, should I practice or not practice? The answer, you should practice. The question is now, where do I put the degrees of my practice in terms of intensity? And that will depend on the psychological setup of the person. And Paul has a very funny way of saying that. He said, at the end of the spectrum, we have what we call the black night. And often Ashtangi are black night. You find all sorts in Ashtangi, but, they tend to be hard to pain, then they move through this kind of heroic attitude, nothing worse, you get nothing worse if you're not going through strong effort, this type of attitude.
We endure anything for 5 breaths.
And so on the end of the spectrum, you have the black night, no pain, no gain. And so those type of person will tend to push themselves through pain, and so they need to be slowed down. If you have those type of people in your class, you have to recognize them psychologically. They tend to push themselves too much over the limit. They don't have the right ratio, and because they have this inclination of this attitude, psychological attitude, and they deteriorate the body. And on the other side is what we call the panda bear. The panda bear, you recognize them when they come in the class. They have big black eyes because they don't sleep well at night. They too worry. They like to come close to the teacher in case something happened. And with a lot of props, you never know how much props you need. You know, this kind of people where they don't want any form of discomfort in their life, which is virtually impossible. And if they achieve that, they become neurotic. And so those people need to be actually encouraged. You know, don't worry, you'll be fine. You know, and you see, you did it yesterday. Why not today? This type of thing. And if you're not stimulating your body enough, you're not deteriorating your body. You actually having a lack of stimulation, which is doesn't let the body to work on optimal level. You're not maintaining the function of the tissue, basically. And this is where the yogi needs to find his own balance, his own kind of center. There is maybe a sign that can be recognized, and it is when the body tenses, and especially in yin yoga. You know, yin yoga, it's not about stretching. It's not about becoming more flexible. This is a byproduct which will come anyway. Yin yoga is about developing the ability to relax in every asana. And as we relax, we will reach different depth of tension. It's like peeling an onion. Everyone can relax on the surface. You know, you go on the sofa, you bring your legs up, and then you start to relax. Everyone can do that. But to reach deeper layer of tension, that require, and this is paradoxical, it require an effort. To relax, it requires an effort. A very specific type of effort, which is a moderate, mild effort, continuously with attention. So listening with patience to what's going on. And so if you feel that your body is tensing around the area which is injured, then that's a sign that you start to come to your threshold. And so you need to back off, maybe not let go completely, just to back off a little bit. Or if you went too far too quick, then to leave the pose for another one, or maybe stop the practice. But there is no healing without communication and communicating with the body, basically. Listening, most of it is about listening. They have terminology for this in Taoism. It's called Ting, T-I-N-G, the art of listening. Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Just one thought that I wanna see what you say to that. When you were just talking also about the healing of your injury and how in the water, in the fascia, in that gel, there's all these things that are stored in there.
Yeah.
And of course, what most physiotherapists also do when they try to heal an injury or help you heal from an injury is they find disbalances in the body where maybe your left side is having more tension than the right side, and so how do you release the left side and engage more the right side so there's more balance?
Yeah.
And so essentially in yin we say, let me get into a pose, and the muscular system usually protects us, right? So when I have an injury, the body will change the muscular tension oftentimes so that we don't have to push onto the injured part, right? So like a protective tension. And of course that's something that we want to release. But essentially in yin, we go so slowly into a certain posture that the muscular tension can be somewhat go around the muscular tension that would be there for protection, so that the actual fascia around it can be released.
Yes.
I see. Okay. Good.
Yes. It is actually the slowness of the practice and the attention and introspection which is developing, because yin, you're shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. You're cutting yourself from the outside world, more or less, closing the eyes and then being more in touch with bodily sensation. And it is, I think, the key element also is the slowness. As we go very slow, then we can see the different degrees of comfort or discomfort appearing or disappearing. I think the healing takes place when we bring consciousness to it. Mm-hmm. When we have pain, and for everyone, and we find that also in philosophy of yoga, you have raga, dvesha, which is desire and aversion. Nobody wants pain, nobody wants discomfort. What's wrong with that? The only thing is, you cannot avoid it. It's part of life. And so there is a way to deal with discomfort or pain or suffering, which is acceptation. Mm-hmm. And so acceptation has to be done in conscious, with a conscious mind, with attention. And so far, to me, the only way is the slow way. Mm-hmm. Everyone can take a little bit of discomfort. Everyone can take a little bit of pain. Everyone can take a little bit of suffering. We will have a different ratio of that, different degrees of that. And so it's for everyone to find the threshold. And as you go slow, you're able to put a marker. For today, this is what it is. And then tomorrow. As you're doing that, you are moving in consciousness. You are conscious. You are aware of that. I'm accepting my, I would say a big word, karma, because I believe that the body has a karma. Mm-hmm. The body has a karma. The body will unfold itself, and there is so many things that we push into the body. We use and abuse the body and then as we get older, then we have to pay the bill. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't pay the bill, then you're in debt. Yeah. And so to pay the bill is just to face what is reality as it is. And so, suffering is just part of it, and we don't have to focus on it and say, oh, yeah, but, I don't want suffering in my life, which I understand. It's just part of life. It's not what life is all about, but it's part of it. And to run away from it is a mistake. Mm-hmm. And there is a way of facing that, which is being patient, being gentle, being humble. Mm-hmm. And then we discover something, that suffering, pain, and discomfort has a hidden message. Mm-hmm. There is a message. And then this is where we should go in order to decipher the message.
Nice. Yeah. I almost want to say it's a nice, almost finishing word, but before we finish, maybe one last question, also out of curiosity, and because I'm so much into breathing. In Yin, there's not so much about regulating the breath, as far as I understood. It's mainly, again, from my understanding so far, that you just want to develop this nice natural rhythm, and maybe, as you just said about this consciousness and awareness, become aware when the breath wants to go somewhere else, like wants to speed up, wants to tense up, because usually the body has a certain sensation, and that makes then the breath react and speed up or become tense. What's your understanding or approach as to how to use the breath or forget about the breath during Yin practice and in general?
Yes. So I think Yin is a platform, and so there is no one way of approaching breath with the practice of Yin. And if you go to different teachers, and you will have different approaches and different methods. Yin provide qualities such as surrender, acceptation, letting go, introspection, relaxation. All those qualities form the Yin practice, and it becomes more an attitude. Yin is by nature formless, and so like water, which is a very yin element, and it will adapt to the recipient. And so I know that at some point, I don't know if we do it anymore, but Bernie Clark, for instance, was using a little bit of Ujjayi breath, a little bit of Bandha in his practice. And for us personally, we use belly breathing. We are very keen on belly breathing. I know that Paul and Suzy Grillet use different type of approach with their breathing practice. At the moment with the Neijing too, which is also some form of Bandha and stuff. And so there is no set of breath with yin. It's really up to the teacher and the experience and what resonates with the teacher. And I think there is beauty in that. And so for us personally, we always try to stick to the basics and the simple. We like simple and basic things, and we like to stretch them as far as we can. First, because if it's simple and basic, it's accessible for everyone. And we love to have this kind of unilateral things in a yoga practice, not just for a few. But everyone can do yin, I guess. Everyone, everybody can do yin. The asanas are not very challenging, not very difficult. They can be in time, but with the use of support, anyone can do the yin asanas. There are many on the floor, either lying or sitting. So that's one thing. And regarding the breath, we always go back to diaphragmatic breathing, which is belly breathing, which again, it's ingrained in our DNA. If we look at the baby, the lungs are not fully developed, and then the only way they breathe is through pushing the diaphragm down. So it's already something that we know. And so we go back to that because it's serving the practice of yin in terms of relaxation and slowing down. And so we aiming, the intention is to slow down all rhythm. So breathing rhythm, cardiovascular rhythm, and mental activity. Mm-hmm. And once we are there, now we say that we step into the yin space. Now we are landing, we're into the yin space, where observation will now take a different degree of more refined, more sharp, and then you can access different type of information. Mm-hmm. But first we have to set up the environment, and then for us, breath and belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing is a key component. Yeah. And so we revolve around that.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, like you just said, this yin quality is also the quality of letting it happen and surrendering. Therefore, it's almost like offering 10 distinctive breathing techniques would be very yang approach, mm-hmm. right? Versus just breathe is a very yin kind of guideline.
That's it.
And I like what you said about the qualities of yin that we bring up through the yin practice. And I guess just like with any practice, nobody is yin practice deficient in their life, but we definitely all can benefit from bringing that yin quality into our life, whether that's through a 1 hour yin class or just other, any form that brings it into our life, a 5-minute practice, mm-hmm. or just take, I like the idea of breath snacks throughout the day, where you just sit for 2 minutes and instead of, eating a Snickers, you breathe for 2 minutes because it brings in prana, it brings in energy. Sure. And so maybe also that would be something that could be considered a yin element in mm-hmm. your day.
Yes.
Like breaking off the cycle of this, like to-do list,
mm-hmm.
work.
Pausing and going mm-hmm. back to a yin space. And then just to add on what you said, Tom, yin and yang cannot be separated, mm-hmm. but they can be imbalanced. But yin and yang are part of life. If you do your Ashtanga practice, which is maybe from the outside looks yang, but the drishti on the breath, this is yin, which is fixed. And so there is always an element of yin into the yang and an element of yang into the yin. Now the question is, how can I balance them? Mm-hmm. And again, the ratio will be different for everyone according to, environment, according to the background of the person, according to the age and what they're going through and what they want in their life. There is a few parameters to take on board. But yin and yang are part of our life, and they've always been there, always going to be there. And the question is, how can I support the balance of those two energy, of the duality of the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. It's an amazing closing statement. I almost want to say. I wanted to ask you now: is there anything else you want to say?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. We had a wonderful time here at your studio at Gaia Yoga. Sandra was very warm and welcoming, and also the energy of the Shala. If you come to Zagreb, you must visit. It's a beautiful setup, and we can see and feel the energy of yoga vibrating in the air. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming. Yes. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and all your techniques, and like also the way you teach is very nice, very thorough, very detailed, and was appreciated by all the people that participated. And so thank you for coming. And I mean, you have programs all over the world, essentially, right? You teach now mainly in Europe, I think, the last years, but...
Yes, due to the COVID period, then we had to pause and to reconsider also the way we were teaching. Mainly we were based in Asia, and so, revolving around Southeast Asia, and of course, because we are French, then teaching in Europe. But now we are based in France, and then slowly and carefully choosing different country or when we're invited to teach, but less travel. Mm-hmm. It took its toll on us, and things are slowly changing, and so we need to adapt as well.
Yeah. Yes. Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing you again.
Yes,
in the future here in Zagreb, but also around Europe. And thank you again for coming here and talking with me. And I will include all the links to your website. Oh yeah, one last question. What is like with yin yoga? Is there a specific reason for the with?
Yes. It's a little bit playing with the word. So with yin yoga means with the practice of yin yoga, we can then approach and explore the mechanics through a functional approach and the methodology of Paul Grillet. Or we can approach the energetics and then through the knowledge of TCM and Taoism. Or we can approach the psychological aspect and learn the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali and dive into meditation and philosophy. So for us, from the beginning, he was exploring the three bodies and consciously learning that we are not the physical body, neither emotion, neither the mind. And so what's left? That was the idea behind. And the other little play is within yoga, inside yoga.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Nice.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yes.
And so with-yinyoga.com.
Yes, with-yinyoga.com.
Thank you, and until the next time.
Thank you, Tom.